Welcome back to our lounge, where we explore the joys of dealing with a loving ex-mother-in-law who's obsessed with kidnapping your child. Who needs a vacation to Europe when you can have a thrilling game of hide and seek with your former in-laws? Stay tuned for some serious drama and chaos, folks. Ex-mother-in-law keeps trying to kidnap my daughter. I, female 41, was with my soon-to-be ex-husband, male 46, for 16 years. His mother didn't like me at first, but I thought over the years she and the rest of the family warmed up to me. My ex and I lived in her house for about 10 years, and we were living with her when my daughter was born. My ex is the youngest of 4 children, and his mother has always been abnormally close to him. They would go away on holidays without me more times than I can remember. I would have to host them on holidays and prepare food for them. My ex had a problem when he drank. He would become what I thought was a totally different person. He would be violent and aggressive. I was young and naive and thought it was caused by the effects of alcohol. Things were strained between us for a few years. We had a daughter, 8 female, who would tell me wild stories about her dad that he would always deny. She kept telling me that they were going away at Christmas to Grand's and they weren't coming back. He started behaving erratically, crashing cars and leaving our daughter places and forgetting her. Child Protective Services were involved a number of times, to the point where I was the primary carer. All the whole, his mother was hovering in the background. Everything imploded at the end of 2021. I fell down the stairs and broke my leg. I had to have surgery to reconstruct the bones. CPS was concerned about my daughter being alone with my husband, so they allowed her to be in the hospital with me. Mother-in-law came to town to be a supervisor for CPS, so daughter could go home. Mother-in-law and ex told CPS lies about me and took off interstate with my daughter while I was incapacitated. It took me a month of lawyers' letters to get her back. I now have sole custody and a family violence order. Mother-in-law has attempted to take daughter from her school, but I got there in time. My ex messaged me this week to ask if him and mother-in-law can take daughter to Europe for 3 weeks later in the year. I reminded him of the custody arrangement, and he said he thought I could ask the court to change the order for a few weeks, then change them back. He also confessed recently that his family have always hated me and have actively been trying to get rid of me for years, going so far as having an intervention. I got a hold of my ex's phone recently and found that he had been running a smear campaign about me for years. Everything that I'd been feeling was true, and worse, it was coming from him. I live with a horrible gut feeling that mother-in-law is up to something. She has millions of dollars. Ex told me that mother-in-law thinks she would be a better parent to my daughter, so that entitles her to have custody, and she thinks the law doesn't apply to her. What else can I do to protect myself from mother-in-law and ex? Does anyone have experience with this kind of situation? It's concerning to hear about the experiences of OP on Mother-in-Laws from Hell. The mother-in-law's behavior of trying to take the OP's daughter without her consent is unacceptable and should not be tolerated. It's also alarming that her ex-husband and mother-in-law have been spreading lies about the OP, showing that they are willing to go to great lengths to harm her reputation and potentially gain custody of her daughter. In terms of protecting herself and her daughter, the OP has already taken some important steps by obtaining sole custody and a family violence order. It's important for her to continue to document any attempts by the ex-husband or mother-in-law to violate these orders or take her daughter without permission. She may want to consider getting a restraining order or legal consultation to explore other options for protecting herself and her daughter. It's also important for the OP to reach out to a support network of friends, family, or professionals who can provide emotional support during this difficult time. They may be able to provide additional advice or resources for navigating the situation. Overall, the OP's experience highlights the importance of setting clear boundaries and seeking legal protection in situations involving family violence or attempts to take custody without consent. The husband's request to change the court order for a short time to allow him and the mother-in-law to take their daughter to Europe raises concerns. It's important to prioritize the safety and well-being of the child, and any decision should be made with that in mind. Given the husband's past behavior and the mother-in-law's attempts to take the child without permission, it's understandable that the OP would be hesitant to agree to any changes to the custody arrangements. Additionally, the fact that the husband has been spreading lies about the OP raises questions about his motives for wanting to take their daughter to Europe. Ultimately, any decision regarding custody arrangements should be made with the guidance of legal professionals and in the best interests of the child. It's important for the OP to continue to document any concerning behavior by the husband or mother-in-law and to prioritize the safety and well-being of her daughter. Let's see if the community agrees with me. Flomo Joe Blow says, "You have sole custody and a family violence order. Why are you even communicating with your ex when nothing good comes of it? You should be no contact with all of them. And Talk with an attorney about any additional legal safeguards you can put in place. Dreaded Redhead chimes in, a family violence order protects you. However, you too must follow the order. No contact. Protect your daughter. If he is asking about taking her to Europe, I'd let my attorney know this. They have zero rights to see if I understand your post. If they want something from you, they need to contact your attorney. By the way, if mother-in-law or ex showed up to have contact with daughter, call the police and use the order to show they aren't following the order. Carry copies of that order everywhere with you. Be sure the school knows there is a protective order in place. And why you were even close enough to check his phone is baffling. Keep the distance. Frisia wants to say this. The most immediate thing you can do is put the child's passport somewhere that your ex can 100% not get his hands on. If she doesn't have one, you should get one so that you are in control and put it somewhere safe. The OP replies back, thanks everyone for the information. For clarification, the family violence order says that we are allowed to communicate in writing about our daughter, and that I'm allowed to be the supervisor for his visits with her. It also says that anything in the custody arrangement is to be adhered to. We are also allowed to communicate about financial matters because we own a house together that he is delaying the sale of because he lives there. I saw all the text messages on his phone before I left him and our shared house last year. The police had him in custody to serve the family violence order on him, and he left his phone. Under ordinary circumstances, I wouldn't go through his phone, but I had a gut feeling that something was going on. I initially looked for cheating, but found no evidence. So I checked his messages to his mother. I took photos of all the messages from her calling me horrible names, so I have proof in court that she would poison my daughter against me. My daughter and I live in an apartment provided through a DV support program. Our place is secure, and the family violence order says that X cannot come here or within 50 meters of us outside of his home where visitations happen. I've told him I'm not supervising his visits anymore. He has to arrange a supervisor through a specified service. I'm adhering to the family violence order. I'm only communicating about our daughter and financial matters. I thought we had been working towards him possibly having more access to her at a later date, but he keeps showing me I can't trust him to have her alone. I'm concerned about the passport though. I'll look into that. I have her birth certificate, but I just realized he could also ask for a copy and try to get a passport. The school didn't release her to mother-in-law, but she is a teacher and attempted to talk them into letting her take my daughter. She also brought a young cousin to try to get daughter to go with them. The school had a copy of the order and called me, and sent daughter to the library until I arrived. I was in shock and panic, and they told mother-in-law to leave the premises, or they would call the police. In hindsight, I should have called the police at the time, but I was so angry and confused that I didn't think of it until later. From the OP's frustration with her mother-in-law overstaying her welcome, to the suggestion of how to handle the situation by other Redditors, it's clear that this is a delicate and uncomfortable situation for everyone involved. Nonetheless, let's move on to the next post. 36 female, 67 female. I'm days away from giving birth, and mother-in-law insisting on staying past Christmas visit to help until baby comes. When my husband's, 35 male, folks came over to visit for Christmas, his mom, 67-ish female, had an unusual amount of luggage. They lived 3 hours away, and I thought they were staying mainly just Christmas and a few days after. Mother-in-law said she was staying till at least the 6th. My due date is the 4th. We have a 2-year-old toddler whose daycare is closed this week, so a couple of weeks ago, my husband asked if she could stay a week or two over Christmas to help with her. My folks live 1 mile away, and we are fortunate to have a lot of their help with toddler as needed. The issue is that as I approach my due date, I really just want to relax, not wear a bra, not be on and chat all the time, not entertain and be left alone. Mother-in-law is a very nice person, and we get along fine, but she's in my space as I make last-minute mental and physical preparations for a new baby. When discussing the miscommunication about timing, husband tried to suggest she can head home on Monday to go back for her choir practice and daycare starts back up. She brushed it off and insists on staying to help. I'm appreciative, but I really want my own space back in these final days. I know she wants to be here to witness labor begin and probably meet the new baby, which would be fine at the hospital, but I 100% do not want her here, especially when we come home and introduce new baby to toddler, because that is a special moment I selfishly want for our immediate family, not her, not my own parents. I'm feeling very territorial, not to mention terribly uncomfortable and in a lot of pain. How could I possibly insist on her leaving and giving me space when she's honestly just trying to help? I just don't want to damage the relationship, and I also don't want her here. Do I just deal with it by hiding in our bedroom the next week? Do I ask husband to ask her to leave, making him and her upset? Someone's going to be upset in this situation, and right now, it feels like it has to be me to keep the peace. Let's see what the community has in terms of advice. Usually Right 2 says, I think your husband needs to handle it. Mom, we really appreciate the help, but we would like a few days alone together with our toddler before life changes for all of us. That's not selfish or rude of you to want. Wildly Uninteresting adds this. You talk to your husband. He created the problem and he needs to solve it. If it upsets her, then she is only concerned about herself anyway. You have bigger issues and she needs to be more selfless. Why would he even ask her without consulting you? It's completely understandable that you want your own space in these final days before the baby arrives, and it's important to prioritize your own needs and comfort during this time. While it's admirable that your mother-in-law wants to help, it's ultimately up to you and your husband to decide what works best for your family. One option could be to have an honest conversation with your mother-in-law about your feelings and concerns. You could express your gratitude for her willingness to help, but also explain that you would prefer some alone time with your immediate family before and after the baby's arrival. You could also suggest alternative ways for her to support you, such as cooking meals or helping with household chores from a distance. Another option could be to have your husband speak to his mother and communicate your wishes on your behalf. It's important for him to take an active role in resolving this issue, as it was his suggestion for her to stay longer in the first place. Ultimately, it's important to prioritize your own needs and comfort during this time and to find a solution that works for your family. It may be uncomfortable to have these conversations, but it's better to address the issue sooner rather than later to avoid any further stress or discomfort during this important time. Remember that you're the boss of your own space and family, and it's okay to be a little selfish in order to prioritize your own well-being. And who knows, maybe your mother-in-law will even appreciate the honesty and the opportunity to visit with you and the new baby at a later time when you're feeling more rested and ready to entertain.